All right, what's up, revolutionaries? DC with you here on Project Sanity. Bit of a delay here this evening. We're getting the boys and girls together to talk about what's happening in the Democratic Party and our revolution and the way forward. And we've got some scheduling changes today. Benjamin Dixon Show is going to be taken over by Brandon Sutton and Nick Nowlin. Benjamin's going to take the night off tonight. So they're going to take that time slot starting at 6 p.m. And I'm going to be joined here very shortly by Adair Schmidt, as well as hopefully Lauren Steiner of Our Revolution LA, one of the lead organizers of that group, to talk about what we saw from Bernie in the last couple of days. We know we had the Our Revolution live stream happen last night on Facebook. Which I was able to grab and bring to you guys over at Our Revolution TV. And we are simulcasting tonight on 3 different networks. We're on, of course, ProjectSanity.org, which is the home network to this show. Project Sanity every Thursday from 4-ish to 7 p.m., rather 4-ish to 6 p.m. on the West Coast, but also on the Benjamin Dixon Network and over at OurRevolution.tv. So welcome everybody to all those channels who are watching this stream. And as I said last night, I was able to grab that Facebook stream and put it up on over at Our Revolution TV. And we had a lot of viewers, folks not able to or not willing to go onto Facebook and watch it. So we had about 4,000 people watching the stream over on that channel, on my channel, and that's encouraging that people are still hungry for Bernie information and to see where he wants to go and where he wants to take this revolution, our revolution, whether or not it's with Our Revolution and the Democratic Party, which seems to be where Bernie Sanders is going. He is, of course, supporting Keith Ellison as a DNC chair and also Chuck Schumer as the Senate Minority Leader. Now, we can argue about Keith Ellison and whether or not he's a good choice. I think it's the easy choice for them, not much of a change, almost of a pandering choice, if you will, to try to immediately capitalize on, what they think they missed. And, it's funny, I first thing I noticed the next day after Podesta came out and did his speech that we're not giving up, but we'll talk to you tomorrow. And then, of course, they gave up. And then Hillary and Bill came out the next day, and they were, of course, wearing their purple. She was wearing purple, and he was wearing purple, and now everybody seems to be wearing purple. Everybody in the media is starting to wear purple. Mika Brzezinski's got purple on. I'm seeing purple all over the place. And then, of course, now we hear about the Purple Revolution. For whatever, we're going to maybe get into that a little bit about what that exactly means, and there's some opinion as to what it does mean. But there is definitely, Jimmy Dore talks about this, and we know that Jon Stewart seems to be making his way back into the conversation, which is a good thing. But Jimmy Dore, as far as I'm concerned, is the new Jon Stewart, and he's really one of the only ones that are telling it like it is, as far as I'm concerned. As a progressive. And so Jon Stewart got interviewed this morning on CBS, and Business Insider picked it up and did a little tweet. And I want to play this. It's a short video. It's 1:45. And really what I want to get at is what's at the end of the video is some of the statistics as to how Donald Trump won or Hillary Clinton lost. So let me get this ready to play here.
In the liberal community, you hate this idea of creating people as a monolith. But everybody who voted for Trump is a monolith, is a racist. That hypocrisy is also real. But there is now this idea that anyone who voted for him has to be defined by the worst of his rhetoric. Like, there are guys in my neighborhood that I love, that I respect, that I think have incredible qualities, who are not afraid of Mexicans and not afraid of Muslims and not afraid of blacks. They're afraid of their insurance premiums. in the liberal community, you hate this idea of creating people as a monolith. Don't look at Muslims as a monolith. They are the individuals, and it would be ignorance. But everybody who voted for Trump is a monolith, is a racist. That hypocrisy is also real in our country.
I'm just going to stop it right there for a second. The 5 flip states accounted for 83 electoral votes. And they're your states: Florida, Iowa, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So, and she could have run any one of those states and won the presidency. So all she had to do was win one. And then, of course, they go on about Michigan. So now, as Jimmy Dore points out, they're doing the exact same thing. They're not changing at all. They want to go purple, which of course means more conservative, more to the right. They've had their 3-day donor party with Soros and the billionaires, and they've launched allegedly this new program, which is the Purple Revolution. I don't know. This isn't on the fake news site list. You know, it's because we have to be careful of the fake news sites. And but there's no doubt that that Soros backs Democrats and Democratic causes, and a lot of them are good, but a lot of them do well. But you know, he's got an agenda. He's a billionaire. He's a businessman, and his overall goal is to make money. And of course, Keith Ellison, he's supported by Soros, and as is Schumer, I'm assuming. But I just thought it was really funny. I'm just like, what's the purple? I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on. Did you notice they have a purple? And then everybody's wearing purple. So now it's like, okay, there's something called the Purple Revolution. Now there are those that say that it's basically these, a lot of these protests are what this is all about. And that these aren't as organic as it seems. Certainly the media covers them as if they are staged, as if they are part of the big fazool that I like to call it. Because I tell you what, when I was in San Francisco in the streets before the Iraq War with 250,000 people, and with people all over the world protesting the Iraq War, and in New York and everywhere, there weren't multiple screens on the mainstream media showing everybody in the streets trying to stop the Iraq War. But boy, I'll tell you, all of these protests after the election sure are going up. Now it's my understanding that, say, that like the Answer Coalition, they had basically 4 protests planned. I think whether or not Trump was going to win or Clinton was going to win, they were going to be in the streets anyway. And then basically move on, apparently exploded the protests. And now, it's not to say that people aren't angry and scared and getting in the streets, because the media has basically created this monster, this Frankenstein, that all of a sudden now everybody's friends with and trying to go back to normality, the big fazool. Of course, something else in the news, you know, you wonder if one of the things that we were giving Clinton a lot of grief for was that who the neocons that she was bringing in to her sphere of influence, as it were. But Kissinger's meeting with Trump, so he's still in the game, reported by the AP. And same as it ever was. But Anonymous is scared. Anonymous had they went live, and I don't know if they're scared, but they were, of course, they always they capitalize on the fear angle too. But they're convinced that Donald Trump is upsetting more than just the American establishment apple cart. So we'll see. It's going to be, it's, we don't want to normalize it. We don't want to normalize him. Let him pick these crazy people. Apparently Bolton's off the list, which I guess, just for humanity is a good thing. But, the more crazy he makes his cabinet, the more people are going to be galvanized. And that's really, that's, I think, what is going to be the hope out of this and the way forward. And we're going to talk about that as soon as everybody starts filling into the room here. But we're going to have to build coalitions. That's all there is to it. Now, I've been having a conversation about, is Bernie a sellout? Is he a sheepdog? We're going to talk about that with Lawrence Steiner. That's always been a worry, and we've talked about that from the very beginning. The far left has always sort of considered Bernie Sanders as being a sheepdog. Now, I've always thought Bernie to be an upstanding senator and a public servant, and always, our champion of the working class. And I think his motives are true and good. I think he just knows that, or believes that, there's no way that we can do this with a third party. And the only way to change anything is within the system of the duopoly, because the rules are not going to be able to be changed in order to get third parties with any type of influence. There was a comment on the stream, one of the streams the last couple of days, about how basically the Green Party, before Nader came in, was not going to run a presidential candidate. And they were basically just going to work on issues and work on getting local governments and getting people on a local level and building the party. And then the leadership, found Ralph Nader and decided to run Ralph Nader. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that was a completely bad thing, but basically the Green Party disappeared again after Nader and didn't continue to build their party. Just like when Obama was elected, the progressives, they, basically closed their eyes and let Obama, okay, go ahead, go for it. And he just passed Romney Care and continued to do whatever the bankers wanted, and everybody led us down a road that gave us Trump. There's all this blame about it's the millennials or it's the Bernie people and everybody but the Democratic Party, but it looks like they want to change. They say they want to change. We have to go to the progressive side. We have to go to the progressive side, but they're going back to the donors, and they're going right back to the leadership that is going to get us to do the same things. Now, is this going to be an effective leadership to fight Donald Trump? I think, we're going to fight him. We're going to fight him in the streets. We're going to fight him in the streets. We're going to fight him locally with actions that he's going to start. There's already colleges that are going to become sanctuary colleges. LAPD has refused. Right now, the chief says they're not going to help with any type of roundups or any type of mass deportations. So we're going to see, where he's really going to go and what's going to happen. Obviously the Democratic Party, it just seems like they're not going to learn. They're not going to learn. And right now I'm feeling like the Democratic Party is dead, and we need to do something outside of it. But is that really going to do anything in presidential politics? Can we focus with third parties and just work on local levels and build up coalitions locally with the third parties, and then just really presidential politics is presidential politics, and it's if we survive the military-industrial complex control over everything, we'll be there's nothing we can do about it, except to act locally. So we're going to get Adair Schmidt in here. We're going to get Brandon Sutton in here. Nick Nowlins, Brandon and Nick are going to go into the Benjamin Dixon Show hour starting at 6 p.m. Pacific. And they're going to continue that. So they're gearing up for that. Adair is eating some dinner. And Lauren, I'm trying to get contacted on Facebook. So I'm going to put up a video from Bernie Sanders' speech today. I streamed earlier the live stream from the Heal America rally that was going on in front of Congress. And Bernie spoke for about 12 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and put that video up and let you guys watch that. It's the better video. It's from the senator's website. And let's hear what he has to say. And hopefully somebody will join me in here and we'll talk about it on the back end. Thanks for watching. This is Project Sanity. I'm DC, Our Revolution TV. You can follow me on Twitter. And here's Bernie.
I don't know how much I can add to what they said, but let me just say a few things. Number one, please do not forget, Donald Trump goes into the White House having lost the popular vote by 2 million votes. Number two, on every important issue facing the American people, whether it is raising the minimum wage to a living wage, whether it is pay equity for women, whether it is rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure and creating millions of good-paying jobs, whether it is making public colleges and universities tuition free, whether it is demanding that billionaires like Donald Trump and his friends start paying their fair share of taxes, whether it is transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, whether it is joining the rest of the industrialized world and guaranteeing health care to every man, woman, and child as a right, whether it is guaranteeing 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave, on all of those issues, the American people are behind us. And here is an issue, as you all know, where we at the grassroots have already succeeded. We have taken on corporate America. We have taken on the National Association of Manufacturers. We have taken on the pharmaceutical industry. We have defeated the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Those are no small things. But now, obviously, we have our work cut out for us. And let me just say a few things about where I perceive we are today. Donald Trump won the election for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons that he won is, in my view, a failure of the Democratic Party that must be rectified. And that is why I am supporting Keith Ellison for the next chair. The Democratic Party has got to recognize, and I'm now not here to blame anybody, not to criticize anybody, but facts are facts. When you lose the White House to the least popular candidate in the history of America, when you lose the Senate, when you lose the House, and when 2/3 of governors in this country are Republicans, it is time for a new direction for the Democratic Party. It is time. No, that's not Bernie. No. It really is not. No, I mean this very sincerely. I appreciate your love, and it is mutual. It is mutual. I love you all. And we are motivated by love, unlike some who are motivated by hatred. But brothers and sisters, if there's any message I have today, it is not Bernie. It is all of us together. Point number one. If we are going to go forward successfully, the Democratic Party has got to recognize some very important realities that Donald Trump, in fact, did recognize. And that is, yes, we are better off today economically than we were 8 years ago. We've made a lot of progress in a lot of areas. But there are millions of people today, working class people, middle class people, low income people who are living in despair. And we have got to recognize that reality. I want you to think for a moment. Think about a woman in New York City earning fairly good income, $50,000 a year. She's paying $15,000 for child care. She can't afford it. Talk about the worker in Vermont who's not working one job. He's working 2 or 3 jobs to cobble together the income he needs in order to take care of his family. Think about the person who went into debt to go to college, has a degree, and is now making $12 an hour, $60,000 in debt. Think about half of the older workers in America, 55, 60, 65 years of age, who are going into retirement, who have zero money in the bank as they head into retirement. Talk about the millions of workers who are trying to get by a $9, $10, $11 an hour. Talk about the senior citizens and the disabled veterans who are trying to get by on $11,000 or $12,000 a year. Talk about the elderly people who are cutting their pills in half because they cannot afford the outrageous prices that the pharmaceutical industry is charging us. Talk about and think about millions of people who are living in despair, who are turning to alcohol, drugs, and suicide as a solution to where they are today. There is a lot of pain in America. Capitol Hill doesn't understand it. We do. And we are going to reach out to those brothers and sisters and work with them to transform this country. I have not the slightest doubt that millions of people voted for Donald Trump despite their understanding that he is a racist and a sexist. But they voted for him because they believed that he was going to stand up to the establishment. Well, the truth is, as all of you know, Donald Trump is not going to stand up to the establishment. We are going to stand up to the establishment. We are going to take on Wall Street and their greed and their illegal behavior. Thank you, Occupy Wall Street. We are going to take on the insurance companies and the drug companies and fight for a Medicare for all single-payer program. We are going to take on corporate America and fight for trade policies that work for working people in this country, not just the CEOs of large corporations. There is an area that we will not compromise one iota. We will not compromise on the issues of racism, on sexism, on xenophobia and Islamophobia. You know, everybody here knows, in a democracy, we disagree with our neighbors, we disagree with our wives and our husbands. That's America. Okay, that's good. We can disagree on public policy. But this country, as all of you know, for hundreds of years, we have fought, and so many brave people have died in the struggle, or been beaten, or went to jail, to fight against the horrific policies that were put in place against our Native American brothers and sisters. against our African American brothers and sisters, against the Latino brothers and sisters. 100 years ago today, women did not have the right to vote, could not get the education or the jobs that they wanted, but millions of women and their male allies stood up and demanded fundamental change. Women will not be second-class citizens in this country. And we all know the struggle that the LGBT community struggled for to make certain that all people in this country have the right to marry whomever they want, regardless of gender. We have struggled to move forward and have made real success in making this country a less discriminatory society. We all know too much racism and sexism exists, but we should be proud of the progress we have made. Donald Trump, we are not going back. And there is another issue that cannot be compromised because the future of the planet depends upon it. Donald Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax. Donald Trump is dangerously wrong on that vitally important issue. Donald Trump has got to start listening to the scientific community and not just the fossil fuel industry. Brothers and sisters, there is a lot of anguish across the land and a lot of pain and a lot of fear. But as previous speakers have told you, and what I believe, if you look at history, the lesson that you learn is that when ordinary people stand up by the millions, when they don't let demagogues divide us up by race or by our sexual orientation, or whether we're men or women, whether we're born in this country or come from abroad, when we stand together and keep our eyes on the prize, when we focus on economic justice, when we focus on social justice, racial justice, environmental justice, when we stand together, Donald Trump and nobody is going to stop us. Let's go forward together. Thank you all.
All right, that was, of course, Bernie Sanders at the rally in D.C. today, the Heal America rally, which was also had Nina Turner and Tulsi Gabbard and the Nurses Union, the Fringe Nurses Union was represented, as well as Larry Cohen from Our Revolution, the new organization that Bernie Sanders has launched along with his book, which I have ordered 2 copies of because I've been immortalized on the inside cover, along with my wife. So I will be blamed forever. And joining me now, thank God, someone joining me in the room for Project Sanity, because I'm going insane, is Nick Nowlin of the Takedown with Nick over on the Benjamin Dixon Network. Good evening, Nick. Oh, unmute. Unmute yourself.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. Listen to the last little portion of that speech there.
Yeah, he's been out pushing it. Last night, he of course did his live stream over Facebook in reaction to Donald Trump and Steve Bannon, and then of course today was a planned rally in Washington, and he had all the heavy progressive hitters out there to talk about their plan to continue to support basically a kinder, gentler version of the Democratic Party, a more unified purple party, if you will. What is your initial reaction to Keith Ellison being pushed by all the leadership, Chuck Schumer being raised to the level of minority leader against obvious dissatisfaction within the populace and the electorate as far as the progressive electorate? What's your take on this, Nick? I think we're on the same page, but let me know. What do you think?
Oh, well, people are not going to like what I have to say right now. Because that speech probably sounded really good to a lot of people.
It
But I
sounded
mean,
really good. Yeah, it sounded a lot like a
there were
lot of the other speeches.
yeah, there were a lot of notable things missing. It was all aimed at Donald Trump. I didn't see him mention any of when he was talking about those policies, I didn't see him make reference to the fact that, the Democratic Party has been right along for half of that stuff he was talking about, especially economic justice, and even racial justice. If you're talking about specifically the Clinton brand of the Democratic Party, they haven't been there on that either. So, he needs to actually make that clear, because right now it appears to me that he's basically, being used by the establishment to be a front man while they continue the same thing that they've always done. So, as much respect as I have for Bernie Sanders and what he did do in the primary, I think if you always, try to keep an objective eye on what's going on, we have to basically start asking some questions. And those questions would be, at what point does someone cease to be useful for the movement, if they did something in the past, but now they're, doing things that are not necessarily helpful? Where is that line become drawn? I read some posts by some other people that said that, Bernie Sanders is in the rearview mirror in many respects. And I can see where they get that. And to some people, they say, he's somebody we need to rally around, and that we're just being too hard on, we just need to wait. And, I'm not necessarily sure exactly where I come down on that spectrum, but I do believe, that all these critiques of Donald Trump do need to also have need to be complemented by a critique of the Democratic Party. Because if he's really trying to have a kinder, gentler, or change the Democratic Party in some sort of way, he doesn't need to be holding hands with them and helping them and basically carrying their water.
Well, it certainly does seem as though we've been down this road before, and a lot of people are. I actually kind of really agree with that sentiment. I think that's the perfect sentiment, that Bernie is in the rear view mirror now. I think Bernie has a good heart. I've always thought he has, and I think he did basically what Donald Trump did. I think Donald Trump also realized he wasn't going to be able to run as a third party in this duopoly, and that he was going to be able, he had to get into the Republican Party, and Bernie basically believed the same thing. He has great disdain for Ralph Nader and what he thinks, he basically agrees with all the mainstream and the establishment that Nader was what caused the problem in 2000 in Florida. And, I think that he basically believes that at this time, there is just no hope for a third party. There's no way a third party can break this duopoly. The rules aren't going to be able to be changed fast enough. And really the only option is to work within the Democratic Party, because they've got the structure, they have the organization. They also, unfortunately, have all the Wall Street ties and all of the money ties, which is obvious based on the immediate place they went to. It's not like they went and said, well, here, we're going to do this great big grassroots fundraising move with, we're going to use the same email platform we used to raise money for Bernie Sanders, and we're going to get people to donate so much money, and we're going to raise money without the Wall Street donors. That's not what they did. They immediately had a party for 3 days with all the money and planned, let's turn purple and to go more to the right as opposed to the left. And all of the independents are once again, the Democratic Party is going to shrink again, even smaller. And the independents, that wedge is going to get even wider. And then, of course, the Republicans are going to find out that his base are going to find out they've got a con man and is not actually going to do what he says he's going to do unless he has some, I'm on my, this is my last hurrah type of epiphany, which nobody seems to think that's going to happen. And knowing people with dementia, which I still think he might have, he's not going to change his mind. So
I talked about this yesterday. Let me come in on there.
Yeah, go ahead.
I really don't think we're taking seriously the fact that the Democratic Party has moved far enough to the right that the Republicans can also occupy the same space and quite possibly flank them from the left on a couple of key issues, and it would really do well for Democrats to pay attention, especially on the economic aspects. So I'm not saying that, it's necessarily going to be good what we need, but they can definitely, do a little bit better than the Democrats have done and still be right enough to be okay with corporate America. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity there. Now, if you're talking about climate change, maybe not, but I definitely do believe that a corporate, private public partnership kind of jobs program and maybe some tax cuts to hire new workers or things of that nature, like employee incentives to hire workers and things of that nature. Those things are definitely possible. And these things could benefit, enough people that even though they're not necessarily great policy, that, they can come out looking very viable.
He ran as a populist. So, and that's why he got those votes. That's why he won in Wisconsin. That's why he won Pennsylvania. That's why he's probably going to win Michigan. And I showed that tweet that earlier, and just, she had to pick off one of those states. They completely ignored it. They had their big donor parties. They said, we got this. We're going to go get red states. We're going to go get the Republicans because that's all we need to do, really. And Schumer's right on board that program. So I don't see him changing. Now, as far as Ellison goes, I think, is if the right's not going to be on board, that absolutely not, for obvious reasons. They're gonna milk that thing to death. Now, is that a good reason to do it, or is it a pandering reason to do it to look like they are, putting the more accepting face on it? You know what I'm saying? But who else? Who do you think could lead the Democratic Party, other than Bernie, of course, in the Senate as minority leader? But as far as the DNC, who do you see would be an effective grassroots money fundraiser? Because that's really where we need to go. I mean, you look at how much Hillary Clinton raised and got crushed based on how much Donald Trump raised. Now, he put a lot of that money in himself, some, loaned it to himself or however he did it to get the, to not actually put any money in. But, she basically raised, about half of what she raised and was able to pull off this amazing, astounding victory. So who do you think should run the DNC?
Well, number one, I think the DNC's model needs to be changed. I don't necessarily believe one individual should be in control of the DNC. I think it should be changed to some sort of possible like a council, and they should pick notable leaders from the community that are deeply involved in activism, which will activate, groups within the base of the party, and then kind of springboard from there. If I were to say they were just going to stick with the exact same structure that they have and just have to pick one individual person, I couldn't tell you, but I would say some requirements in looking for that person would be, it would have to be somebody that did not endorse Hillary Clinton for president under any reason, any circumstance. And then on top of that, they would have to basically be vowing to move the Democratic Party off of corporate money. These are things that I think any new person that we would be looking to for leadership from the party, those are things they must embrace. And then lastly, that would also, exclude characters like Elizabeth Warren and even Bernie Sanders to a large extent. And the reason why I say this is, we need to be strong, bold, and courageous and really take on that insurgency and a boldness that's needed to take over the party if that's our goal. I'm not of the opinion that should be the goal,
right? But
if that's the goal everybody's running with, who am I to say, no, you shouldn't do that? If you're going to go with that strategy, you have to do it right. And the first thing you have to do is basically purge the party of the Clintonites. And when I say the Clintonites, I mean the neoliberals and anybody that's paying fealty to neoliberalism.
It's a big list.
Including the people that you might like. That may mean 95% of the party.
Yeah. That
may mean you might lose everything, but that's the work that you signed on for when you said you wanted to change the Democratic Party. It means purging 95% of it.
Well, now, can that be? You think that can be accomplished? Because I don't think necessarily it's savable, and even if it is possibly, if we want to save the party, but can you think that strategy could create an effective, viable third party within a short 2 to 4 year period of time?
Well, first off, I want to first say the idea that we're going to create something in 2 to 4 years is asinine. We're looking at a decade project, people. this is going to be a decade thing. It's going to take a decade for us to really start seeing the first bloom, so to speak.
Well, that's how the right did it. They literally took them, 20 years basically taking over governorships and house, and state houses and school boards and moved up and then that's what got it. That's what they were able to create, and that's why they've been able to control without the popular vote, which is another. We can talk about this electoral college situation too, which I have some opinions on, but. Creating something. You're right. It's like anything in the world. It's like when people come out here to Hollywood to seek their fortune as an actor. It's like you got 10 years because that's how long it's going to take. Go ahead.
Oh, I froze for a second there. Could you repeat that last part?
I was just saying, when people come out to Hollywood and it's like, oh, I'm going to be an actor, and in 6 months. No, it takes 10 years. It takes 10 years to do anything. And but what is our short-term plan? Is getting behind the Democrats fighting against Trump? At least we have a common ally now, like we did with Bush. I mean, a common enemy. Do we form the coalition with the party but stay outside of it? What is the way forward to get progressives in 2 years and to challenge what we think Trump is going to do?
Well, look. I'm of the opinion that the Democratic Party is not going to change unless you stick a gun to its head. So, at this point, you need to draw a line in the sand and give them an ultimatum. You're going to do these things, or else we're going to be out. And if they say no, that we're unrealistic, that we're being unreasonable, and that they're not going to do these things, or that these things are impossible, then we go somewhere else that's going to do those things. That's literally what the Democratic corrective is. And, sometimes we may not know exactly all of how that plan is going to work, exactly how all those pieces are going to fall together. But again, that is where we have to be. When people struck out and decided that feudalism was going to come to an end, nobody exactly knew how the new system was going to come into place and how all the pieces were going to lock together. But sometimes, like I've said before on my show, sometimes, faith is being able to take the first step without being able to see the whole staircase. And I think we're kind of at that point now in our politics where we need to start taking steps boldly and courageously, even though we can't see the entire staircase. That's not to say we won't make mistakes, but guess what? Those mistakes are what have to be made in order for us to progress.
Well, I think that the electorate, at least the majority of the electorate, the young people, the millennials, the larger Latino population that's growing, Asian population that's growing. You saw a shift in that electorate. And I think this is really, we've seen the corruption of the Democratic Party based on, because of the WikiLeaks, whether it's Russia or whoever it's from. There's a good op-ed in the New York Times today about WikiLeaks as well. But we've seen the rot of the Democratic Party. We are awake now, woke, whatever the hashtag is. People, because of the internet, social media, people are, they're rejecting the cable news and the mainstream media. And any of these people, I'm watching Steve Schmidt on Morning Joe, and this guy was, days before the guy that brought us Sarah Palin, by the way, thank you, basically created the space for Donald Trump. He says there's no way he's going to win. He's done. This is this last bit was it. It's over. He's ended. The election is over. He was like one of the biggest cheerleaders of it. And now he's on. Well, he's still working. All these people are still working, which blows my mind. The pundits are still working, the pollsters are still working. Mea culpa, we blew it. But here, let's make some more predictions and do the exact same thing we did before. And so, everybody's awake now. Everybody's seen what the Democratic Party is like. We have a common enemy in this neo-fascist, the guy who exemplifies the 1% who we're against, and we're seeing what he's doing with his cabinet and his staff and his advisors. Just keep loading it up. Keep loading it up with these crazies, because it's, I've seen people now. Yesterday, there was a protest downtown last night here in LA against the appointment of Bannon. And a friend of mine who hasn't been in the streets, I don't think ever, is like left her kids at home with her husband and said, I'm going to go protest because of that guy. So, people are going to have a resistance. Go ahead.
Let's examine that. The first thing I want to say is my friend makes a comment, about people and how, we're all kind of subject to some form of manipulation in one way or another. But, why is this Bannon character such a big figure? Where did he come from? Why is it everybody knows his name? Why is he referenced as, a white nationalist instead of like a misogynist or an anti-Semite? Why is he only a white nationalist who has to be stopped at all costs? That narrative comes out of a place, right? And I'm not saying it's incorrect, but I'm saying we're still seeing people still be led in a way. They've been given their enemy. And I think, that enemy is been personalized in the form of a person, when we really should be evaluating, we have a systemic problem, and it's not just a matter of changing the heads, so to speak. I think we need to start looking and examining at, the systems or the mechanisms by which we're all being, where we're all basically living in a situation that's untenable. It comes from somewhere. And it's not just from, this one man. It's not just from Donald Trump either. And I think that's still a problem. I think we're still looking at the personalities. We want to have that heroic tale. We're the hero, or we look to Bernie Sanders as though he's a hero and he's going to save us from the bad Donald Trump. And it's just like, that's too simple a narrative. And I think we need to try to focus on raising the consciousness a little bit higher beyond that. And then the part where you said about the pundits, why would the pundits lose their jobs? I don't think that their job is necessarily to be accurate. I think their job is to basically paint an illusion and propagate it. So I think they did their job marvelously. Everybody believed something completely separate from what the reality really was. And so I think they probably got a bonus. I don't think they should be losing money or losing their jobs. I think they're performing great. And when you consider the fact that illusion is what the owner class wants to be out there, and these misdirections and distractions are what they want to be out there, then, I would expect them all to be, riding high on the hog this holiday season.
Yeah, and they're all getting back on. They're all getting on board again too. You can see it. And it's as subtle as the purple. It's there. This morning they're all wearing purple. I'm seeing it. The Congress people are wearing purple. They're all on board with the narrative, with the creating the narrative. And you're right. They're not going to get fired, but they're going to lose viewership because their viewership is dying. Their average age is 63. And that's I think that's the youngest one. So they're dying. So the only way I would see that they are going to get fired is if they just completely lose their viewership. But they're moving over into the internet realm, the digital realm, and then of course they come out with immediately with make sure you stay away from these fake news sites, which some of which are of course fake news sites, but that basically paints the whole internet realm of good journalism that's out there and good investigative advocacy work that's going on with this brush of everything's bad. You have to make sure you're just getting it from us. So, it's like, this is from a fake news site, but you just have to cross-reference this to 2 other fake news sites, and then it's probably real. So it's a brave new world for them, and I think they're trying to adapt. I don't know. Obviously, they're not going to adapt fast enough. I don't think that's going to be the case with the rise of TYT, with the amount of people that were watching that stream during election night, as opposed to the cable news networks. The stream that I put up last night of Bernie's stream, I was just like, all of a sudden I got 4,000 people watching it. And because, no one else has got it. And for some reason, people don't want to be on Facebook or whatever. So, it's a brave new world, and we're a part of it, Nick. And your show is The Takedown on, what night is it on? Tell us about your show and what you got coming up. You've been getting some good interviews.
Yeah, I usually try to bring on people that I feel aren't really given a space to speak and really speak, and I really want their perspective to get out there so people are more aware of it. And I've tried to get some more notable names, but they're hard to reach. I've really been trying to get Ralph Nader to come on the show and just give us some of his time. And I noticed that you mentioned him there. And I think, everybody who's on this show or watching the stream right now, if you aren't familiar with the things that Ralph Nader has done, please take some time to go back and really read and understand some of what he has contributed to this country. Like Ralph Nader is probably, as far as consumer safety and consumer protections, Ralph Nader has done an immense amount of work, from everything from factories to automobiles, and changing the way regulation is done in America. Everything from your car seat to your seat belts, he's just done an amazing work as far as, getting safety legislation out there and confronting the powers that be. So don't let this idea that because in 2000 he ran as an independent means that's all of his story. There really is a greatness to Ralph Nader. And I'm not saying, go and worship Ralph Nader. I'm just saying understand what he has contributed before you level some sort of critique based off of what the media has been feeding you. Now, going back to what you said about the online, TYT, is definitely one of the biggest names out there in terms of alternative media. But if you've been watching them for a long time, I've noticed a market shift. Of course, TYT is a for-profit, media organization, and they have, kind of shifted their coverage. And to be honest, I think in certain respects, we have to be real. They were very supportive of Hillary Clinton and that brand of neoliberalism that she represents. And I think that if you really want to be an alternative voice, not saying you have to believe the same way I believe and things of that nature, but I really do believe at this point that we can't have our alternative media sources getting out there and trying to shut out the alternative voices and basically try to fall in with the establishment. That's really problematic. And you can just see it. Like the moment Bernie Sanders was starting to lose the primary, he just starts, piling in on Trump and, aligning with Hillary Clinton. And all of a sudden his Hillary Clinton criticism just kind of disappeared. And I think that's indicative of where they are, that they're really trying to cater to like a broader audience. And some of that's going to be, the more elite liberalism that we're really trying to fight against. So as far as being useful to us in forms of alternative media, it calls into question how useful they really are. At least in the form of expanding thought.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think Cenk wants to get back onto MSNBC. I heard a little rumor about that. So, it's you get to a level, you start to get a little popularity and a little fame, and you get some commercial support, and your perspective changes a little bit sometimes. But I think they're definitely one of the strongest voices out there. They definitely got behind Hillary Clinton. And got on that bandwagon, the fear of Trump, I think, helped that along the way. And of course, Jimmy Dore has been a continued voice there that he seems to think he's not going to be on there very much longer either, I think, or at least some of his viewers do. But no, I agree with you to a certain extent. And I find it really interesting that, of course, been Brandon Sutton joining in here as well, jumping in. And I'll bring you up here, Brandon, just to sort of finish my thought on this and TYT. It's just really interesting that we see this, the first real digital network, news network, with an amazing following, sort of be pulled right back into that mindset. And I don't know if it's necessarily encouraging or not, but Brandon Sutton, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. Can you hear me good? Wow.
I think so. Get that little timbre up a little bit.
Okay. Well, so I have an alternative opinion. I know I came in right at the end of what Nick was saying. And so I think it's easy to kind of shift towards the notion that they are becoming more mainstream simply because they have a larger audience. But, they started off poor. Jinx started off, Anna started off, they started off poor and unwell known. So at a certain point, we have to talk about just them as people moving up in the demographic, them as people moving sort of out of the fringe in terms of how much they're making, where like what TV shows they can go on, and that's a big thing as well. How do you get on MSNBC? Anna Kasparian was just on reliable sources. Like how do you get that sort of mainstream recognition, but still keep your progressive bona fides? And you have to straddle that line. Where I would say I like about them is that they don't actively silence the more progressive people in their roster. So yes, Jink and Anna and all of these people were more, I wouldn't say pro Hillary, but they were pushing more towards a lesser of two evils mentality. They were very much anti-Trump. You couldn't go 1 or 2 days, 1 or 2 hours. I was seeing a loser Trump video on their channel, or loser Trump stream, which was kind of annoying. I got to be honest with you. Like at a certain point, it's kind of annoying, and it's not. You oversaturate it. At a certain, from my perspective, I think at a certain point you just oversaturate the market. No one's going to watch 20 videos about why Trump is a loser. But what I will say is this: they didn't silence Jimmy Dore, they didn't silence Steve-O. They silenced. In fact, they made a new show out of it, Aggressive Progressives. So they understand the market is there, and so they are trying to appeal to that fringe, or I don't want to say fringe, but the far left or the moderate left.
And just to throw in T.Y. Jordan at TYT Politics is really the only journalist, literally, other than Amy Goodman, that's up at North Dakota. Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, I wasn't saying that they were silencing people on their shows or their panels. I think because their microphone is so big, their views silence out alternative voices just by the sheer volume of people they're reaching with that moderation talk. And what I mean by that is, so let's say we see this on TYT, they're seen as like the progressive news, right? And they're out there saying, vote the lesser of two evils. Even if they have a smaller show that says something a little bit different, or even if there's other shows out there that are saying other things, they have such a large audience that they're kind of drowning out some of that. And I think that that's kind of where they fail. And they're not alone. They're just one of the bigger ones. I would throw in the Ring of Fire, half of the Ring of Fire in that book, and I would throw in, the Tom Hartman. I know he's a part of Ring of Fire too. I would throw in Sam Cedar. A lot of our progressive commentators are all did that. As soon as Bernie was out, they were all ready to go in on Trump and align with Hillary Clinton, as if she was the best thing since sliced bread. And I think that that's a little bit strange.
I don't know. I think you are being a little bit hard on them. And I know, because I'm hard on a lot of people as well, but I would say I think you're being a little bit hard on them. They went in for Hillary because they succumbed to that in the same way a lot of people did. I think a lot of Bernie supporters, I think Bernie himself succumbed to that fear of Trump, that fear of the Republicans, that fear of, well, what if me staying in too long or me not being vocal enough actually does cause Trump to win? But here's the thing, at a certain point, and here's where I agree with you, it's not your job. It's not everyone's job to get on the bandwagon. If you have a platform and you consider yourself progressive, you can just be a far left progressive. That's the thing. I think when you compare the progressive left, or whoever you're talking about, to the far right, those people, they ride that train to the end. A lot of them, for all the talk of, they love a strong man, a lot of those far right commentators, they were anti-Trump to the end, man. They might be on the bandwagon now that he's won, or but whatever. But a lot of them, Glenn Beck just had a full 180, and now he's dressing like a hipster and hanging out, and I don't know where he's hanging out, but he's dressed like a hipster, and so it's just disheartening to see many people who I used to listen to every day sort of trumpet that Clinton banner. But at the same time, I never had blind faith in them to begin with, because at the end of the day, I always understood that these people were upper middle class white lawyers, or upper middle class white doctors, or upper middle class white commentators, and I never expected them to understand the stakes of the working class white voter, or the working class person of color voter, or the middle class black voter, or any of these people who simply aren't in that bubble that they occupy. The people who did let me down a little bit are not let me down, but surprised me a little bit, where you're like Jamel Bouie's, who kind of lost their mind a little bit, if that makes any sense.
Well, I think that the creation and the fear of Trump was definitely a powerful, very powerful force. And because it was basically all they had. Every ad that they ran was not what Hillary's going to give us, but that Trump is terrible. So I think that they basically they put themselves into this corner, this box, that, riling everybody up about just the boorish behavior and outward racism that he expresses, and outward misogyny, which I think is really the problem. They basically, it's like, shh, you're not supposed to do this out. You're not supposed to say this out loud. It was like the Saturday Night Live sketch last week with Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock showed up. And it was like, America's racist. Yeah, it is. You're right. And you weren't supposed to do it outward like this. But here we have a Klansman, a white supremacist, which really, why not call him what he ultimately is a opportunistic businessman, is really what Steve Bannon is.
That's a really good point. And let's not pretend as though the Clinton administration was not laying down with dogs either, because David Brock is a scumbag.
Right.
David Brock is I don't know if he's worse or better than Bannon. That seems like I think we can abandon lesser of two evils for after the election's over. Like David Brock and Steve Bannon are incredibly awful people.
And Podesta is no prince.
Podesta's no prince. All these people who are working for the Clinton administration and Kissinger, Negroponte. These are war criminals, like actual war criminals. So Steve Bannon,
Kissinger plays both sides. Kissinger met with Trump, so he's just he likes war. So,
but the point I'm trying to make is that it's at the end of the day, a lot of progressive commentators in my mind shot Clinton in the foot, because they thought that minimizing her problems would make her a stronger candidate, and it made her a weaker one at the end of the day, because people know she's problematic. So those full-throated defenses of her as something other than a warmonger, other than a neoliberal, other than a corporatist, other than taking Wall Street handouts, didn't do her any good. They just didn't.
A friend of mine told me something that I thought was funny. I'm sorry I disconnected there, but a friend of mine said something about Hillary Clinton, when we were listening to Sam Seder's show. He goes, does Sam Seder just not understand that she doesn't give a shit? Like, how do you hold somebody accountable when they just don't care? Like, they're not interested in these things. They've shown you what they're interested in. They've shown you who they listen to. How can you still say, well, she's going to listen to us after we vote for her and X, Y, and Z? And I think that disconnect, people did notice that. Not everybody, noticed, but people do notice things of that nature. So I think that, like you said, where they didn't give any criticism of her, they tried to make her good when she really wasn't good. To be honest, people like her shouldn't even make it through the primary process.
To be honest, people like her, and let's be perfectly clear, and I don't want to come across as being, overly harsh or prone to whatever you'd call it. But people like her just need to be grateful they're not in prison sometimes. Because in a fair world, a world where contributing to illegal wars is a problem, people like her, people like Kissinger, they'd be in jail. And so it's that hubris in the way the system is set up, where these people not only don't feel the need to sort of go to Argentina or Peru and hide out for the rest of their lives.
They're going to get pardoned.
They feel comfortable.
She's going to get pardoned.
They don't even get pardoned. They come on like it's not even a problem. It's not right. A problem. And so I think that the message from the progressive, or I would say not the progressive media, but the center-left media, who've convinced themselves that they're progressive simply by nature of far-right media passing for mainstream media, have convinced themselves, they did her a disservice, because the right message for Clinton was hold your nose and vote for her. She's bad. She's not the worst. Hold your nose and vote for her.
But many people did make that argument.
Yeah, many people did. I would say Kyle Kalinske from Secular Talk made that argument. I would say TYT made that argument a little bit better. But on the other hand, the vast majority of once progressive outlets like Vox and Daily Beast and Slate and Salon and Mother Jones, they didn't make okay, we're just holding our nose to vote for her because Trump is awful. And not only that, but the real message should have been, we've been trapped into the two-party system. We've been trapped into lesser of two evil politics. This is the lowest we can go, not literally, but figuratively. So Trump versus Clinton's lowest we should go. So we're going to hold our nose, vote for Clinton, and the moment she's in office, we're going to reform the system. That's the right message. I mean, that's the sort of message that shows that you acknowledge that there is a problem with the way we do democracy in this country. But instead, they just sort of.
You don't think that's kind of like first off, that's not going to win an election. That kind of message won't win an election. They
didn't win the election. They didn't win anyway.
But honestly, they had to try to win, and you can't win with a hold your nose and vote. Honestly, just to be honest, that person should not have ever been considered to be president. And I'm sorry, but everybody who says it would have been great to have a first woman president and all of these things. Let me ask you this: did you want a woman president before they told you were ready for a woman president? Were you ready before they told you? Because I believe that nobody really wanted a woman president or really cared too much about it until the media said that we should care about it. And that's another example of what I'm talking about people propagating the illusion. And they literally said, you want this because she's a woman. And then people started to believe it. I didn't wake up one day and be like, you know what, it would be great if we had a woman president today. I didn't wake up with that thought. All of a sudden, I watch enough media time, and now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, yeah, it's great that we should have a woman president. And that's not the first instance that I've noticed that. That's not the first instance. It comes down to, are we getting what we want? Or are we, being told what to want? And I'm really curious as to what it is.
Well, obviously, I mean, it's half of one, sixth of the other. Most people don't necessarily know what they want until they have it, or they're told that they want it. And sometimes, I mean, we've gone to a situation, and I had this sort of I responded to Lee Fang about this on Twitter, and he didn't respond back because he doesn't know who I am. Obviously, why would he? When he, about a month, I would say October 17th-ish, that Trump was going to lose. Or rather, he didn't make the comment himself, but The Intercept tweeted it out. The Intercept as an organization tweeted it out that Trump was going to lose. And this was a comment that was echoed by a lot of people, that Trump is going to lose. The fact that there is no race going on right now. It's all a media illusion. It's all a media narrative so that they can keep selling papers and keep the horse race going, when really there is no horse race. I believe was it Joanne Reed? Oh no, I'm sorry. It might have been Jamel Bowie again, who put that article out that said that Clinton had no chance of losing. She was running on the racetrack by herself, and that the only chance Clinton had of not becoming president was if an asteroid struck the Earth. And so at a certain point, we have to understand that with this election should teach us one thing, that at a certain point, the mainstream media, the 24-hour news cycle, is creating reality and not simply reporting it verbatim. It's not reporting reality so much as it's creating reality. And it created Trump as a phenomenon, as a legitimate candidate, when they gave him billions of dollars worth of free advertisement, free media. And then it propelled him forward because I guess he was right. There's no such thing as bad exposure. There's simply no such thing as bad publicity. And this should teach us a very, very poignant lesson that we need to do a little bit more outside research.
And we're going to continue talking about that lesson at the top of the hour on the Benjamin Dixon Show over on the Benjamin Dixon Network. And it will also be streamed also at projectsanity.org, which you are watching, Project Sanity, with co-hosts Brandon Sutton and myself, DC, along with Nick Nowlin of the Takedown over at the Benjamin Dixon Network. And these two gentlemen are going to continue the conversation in the 6 o'clock hour on the Benjamin Dixon Show. So